Today we answer the question, how much does it cost to build the world's cheapest race car? So I've been spruiking this is the world's cheapest race car the whole way through these videos. Most people probably don't believe me. Some people probably look at it and think, yeah, that's very, very believable. How much did it actually cost to build? I don't know. I had to write it all down because I've forgotten. I really don't pay much attention to how much I spend. I know what things cost and I know what I need, and when I need something I go and earn the money to buy it. Now if you've watched any of my videos you'll know I don't spend any of my own money on this car. I work full-time, I earn an income, and basically that goes to my wife and she does what women do with money, and we haven't been kicked out yet, so I assume she pays the bills. I get an allowance out of my money, which is 10% of what I earn, or it's actually not, it's $100, whatever that equals. My wife gets the same. That's basically money that we can spend on whatever we want without discrimination. We did this early in our relationship just so that we sort of didn't have to negotiate with each other on every little tiny thing that we needed. So $100 a week, is that going to build a car like this? No, it absolutely is not. But for things like consumables, you know, gas, grinding wheels, that kind of thing, it covers those things. But once I, you know, buy beer and coffee and lunch once a week out of that money, there's very little left. So there is technically some of my own money in it, but very, very little. What has built this car on this list here is side hustles. Whenever I need something, I hustle for it. I sell parts, I do side jobs for people, you know, designing roll cages, building roll cages, bending up other tubes, welding gigs, whatever needs to be done with the skills that I have taught myself over the 10-year process that has been this car. So, calling it the world's cheapest race car because technically this has actually made me money making this car, not via the videos, as you can tell by the amount of subscribers. This channel is not monetized. I do not make any money from YouTube. It costs me money because I've had to buy microphones and kit and stuff, which also came from side hustle money. Most of my money comes from wrecking other cars. Whenever I need a part for a 206 now, they are really, really hard to get, especially, you know, things like intake pipes. Electronic components for these things are a nightmare. So when I need those, it often is cheaper for me to buy a whole car, take the pieces that I need off it, and then sell everything else, because that costs me usually nothing. I can usually get what I pay for the car back in parts. Sometimes, like in the case of the last one that I wrecked, I actually made money on that car, which went into this car. Plus I also have an engine and a transmission back there from that car still. So that was actually a really good investment. But without any more talking, because I know you guys hate that, let's move into what it cost. Now, this particular car cost me $2.5 grand, but what you have to remember is that I started with money. So my budget for this car harks all the way back to my first build, which was about 10 years ago. I wanted to go racing. I was in all the racing communities, you know, forums, Facebook groups, because they were a thing 10 years ago. And everyone said that you needed, you know, all this money, you needed 70 grand for a car, and you couldn't do it on a budget. And I sort of looked at events that were coming up and what was required, and I'm like, yeah, no, I can do it for nothing. So I set myself a $1,000 challenge. I said $1,000 I'm going to run in this event. It obviously you can't race for that, but you can do a track day for that. You can't in Sydney, you probably still can in Queensland. So I bought a Mitsubishi Mirage for $300 with some rear end damage. I knew someone who worked at a wrecking yard who got me the rear end panels that I needed for free, so I cut the back of the car off, basically welded a new back on, painted it up. All I did was strip that car, and I found a $50 steering wheel and a $100 seat, and I went and raced that car, and it cost me under $1,000, and I had an absolute blast. It lit the fire, and I sort of wondered where I could go from there. So I did a bit of work to the car, seam welded it, did some chassis bracing, that kind of thing. Made a decent shell out of the car, but the rest of the car was pretty mediocre. A guy I knew who had a Lancer, which is the same platform, wanted to go faster, so he wanted less weight. I had a good chassis, he had good running gear, so he bought my chassis for, I think, about $2,000 and put all of his gear in it. So then I had $2,000, so I bought my first 206, which was $800. I put a roll cage in it. I hustled hard building things. I built a couple of trailers, car trailers, and made some money on those. And I put coilovers, race seat, stripped the loom, roll cage, did a few other things to it. And I sold that car for about, I think, let me see here, $7,500 for that car, which was paid for all on side hustle money. I was earning absolutely nothing back then. All of our money, we owned a house in Queensland. We were basically living paycheck to paycheck. So everything that went into that car was side hustle money that I had made on weekends between, work. So $2,500 bought me this car out of that. However, out of that, this car had brand new wheels on it, which I sold for $1,500. I sold the seats for $500. I sold other miscellaneous parts out of the car for $1,000. So it actually cost me $0. And basically all I was left with was the shell. The engine out of this car was completely trashed. The gearbox I still have. And that's about it. Everything else in this car has come from my last chassis, which again cost me $0 because I bought that car, sold all the stuff off that I didn't want. I think I paid $1,250 for that car, and that donated the engine, front and rear subframes, and that's about it. So car, as the basic structure of the car, $0. Now the coilovers, we'll start from the front, were expensive. So they are Gaz Golds, they have comp brake, camber and caster adjustable top hats on them. I didn't realize how much they were going to cost me. I bought them for about $3,000, which was pretty cheap. Well, not cheap. It was pretty good value. But once they landed in the country, I had to pay customs duties, taxes, and a number of other fees, which amounted to like nearly $600, which was way more than I thought it was going to be. So they sent me back $3,600. Now, you could do it much cheaper. I had BCs on my first car, which were about $1,400. And then the last car had XYZs on it, which were better, and they were about $1,800. So I'll put the prices up on the screen here, and let's do how much I've spent, how much you could spend if you went bargain basement, and how much it would cost you if you had absolutely no skills and you sent it into a shop to get it done. Let's do that. So also on the front, you saw me recently put on the rod ends for the sway bar. They were $120. Brake pads, which I haven't put on yet because I'm still doing the braking system. Front and rear pads are Project Muse. I think they're N+. I'm not 100% sure anymore. They were $460 all round. Braided lines, again, not on the car. They are Hells. I think they were $250 for a full set. Rotors, they are DBA T2s, I think, which are basically a street rotor with some side sliding in them. They're pretty much the best that you can get without going full race, which is hugely expensive for it. They're only $240 a pair, so that's fine. Wheels, not on the car, they're over there in the corner. They are old. I bought those about 3 years ago. You cannot get them for this price anymore, but at the time I paid $16.50 for them. They are Koenig Decagram gunmetal. They also required some spacers, and I also have a stud conversion kit because the Peugeots take wheel bolts. All aftermarket wheels are around a 45 offset. This is about a 25 offset. You can get away with a 0 offset if you want to roll your guards. So I needed to space the wheels out, so I got 100mm studs, slip-on spacers, and that all cost me, I know the stud conversion was $180, and the spacers were $180 as well. So $360 to get the wheels to fit, so about $2,000 in wheels. Tires, I haven't got tires. Race tires have a lifespan, they're a lot more sensitive than street tires, so I'll put them on those last thing. Now you can start with Nankang AR1s in a semi-slick, which are a fast tire. They're about $200 each. The tires that I want to run, Yokohama AO50s, we're going to send me back about probably $2,000 to $2,200. They're a very expensive tire. The steering wheel was $360. That is an OMP unit. The Boss kit to fit it was very, very hard to get. That's $180. Now, Boss kit converts your factory steering spline to a 5-bolt or a 6-bolt, which is aftermarket steering wheel. I also have a quick release, which moves the steering wheel closer to me and obviously allows me to take it off. That was $550. Now, that's a very expensive unit. You could do that much cheaper if you want. The cheaper ones tend to be more troublesome, harder to align, sloppier. I wanted a nice, safe, positive fitment one, and I spent a little bit extra on that because I kind of want that to be like a forever thing. It's a thing that I can take from car to car, and I don't need to replace that ever. You could do that cheaper. You could also do the steering wheel much cheaper. I think the first and last car I had both had a SAS wheel from Super Cheap Auto, which comes in 3 different offsets, and they're about $120 on sale, and they're actually a nice wheel. The seat I got secondhand. It's a full containment Sparco Circuit 2. You've seen that. That cost me $800. The seat, if you were to buy it brand new, is about 16 to 18, depending on where you get it from. 100. I have also had a Cobra seat, which sat much higher. I had to actually cut the floor of the car out to lower that down. So that was actually a pretty good investment because I've actually been able to raise that seat up, get some clearance under it for my harness and my bolts and everything. But it is getting close to its use by date, which means that it limits the amount of events that I can run that seat in because they have an FIA use by date on them. Similarly with the harness, it was only $370. It's one of an entry level harness. It's an OMP. They also have a use by date on them. For my racing, I can use them, I think, up to 5 years past their FIA date. Roll cage. Now, this is the biggest saving. I spent $640 on steel. I also have a bender, a notcher, a welder, and all the gear to design and build a roll cage. So if you factor in what that's going to cost you, it's going to cost you the same as getting a roll cage manufactured, because a tubing bender to bend roll cage tube is minimum $1,800. Even secondhand, you cannot get them, you cannot rent them. If you've got a mate that's got one, excellent. Otherwise, you're out of luck. I didn't have one the first cage I built. I had a guy that I didn't even know him actually. I sort of met him through the process, but he bent the tubes for me. I worked out what I wanted, took some tubing into him. He bent them for, I think, $100. Just quickly whipped them up for me one, Friday afternoon, and then I went back and notched them and welded them in. Could you do that again? Maybe. I do it. I will actually, measure and bend tubes and give them to people, but not for $100. I would probably bend a tube for you for $100, but if I need to, measure it and design it and bend it and supply the tube, I normally charge about $800. Just for the bent tubes. There's really only 3 bent tubes in the car. The rest of them are all straight. So I'll provide a bent kit for people for $800. So if you've got the DIY skills to do it but don't have the bender, you're probably looking at about maybe $1,000 to $1,200 for a cage. If you want a bolt-in kit, which is something that you can install yourself from AGI, something like that, looking about $3,000 to $3,500. A welding cage where you send the car away, they weld it in for you, is going to be a bit more than that, $4,000+, and then up to full FIA rally spec TIG welded things, which are $8,000, $10,000, $12,000. The sky's the limit. Now, I also have a short shift kit in this car. Not necessary at all. However, every little thing that I can do to try and shave time out of this car because it's not going to be fast is beneficial to me. That was $720. The cap delete pipe, which is in there, which again, totally not necessary. I just put it in because I had it. I actually bought off a guy. He had a header and a cat delete pipe, which wasn't in for this car. It was for the 130 40 horsepower version. I bought it for $120 and I sold the header for $150. It actually cost me negative $30, hence the reason I just bolted it in for fun. Also to go on the car is the Haltech. Now, I didn't pay for it. It was $2,400 on sale for a Haltech Elite. I think it's a 750 and a wiring kit with a little fuse box and some heat shrink wrap. That was bought from my work, actually owed me a bonus, and I said, hey, just buy me this. So that was a freebie. Otherwise, I would not be running that. I'd be running factory ECU and completely stock engine. Now, pedal box and bush kit is something that I'm currently tossing up with. I have that $300 pedal box, which I don't think is going to work. I really want a Tilton pedal box. Again, totally not necessary, but I need to do something with the braking system because once I install the Haltech, I lose my ABS unless I get a computer to control that. So I need to go full manual brakes, which when I'm doing full manual brakes, I need to change out my master cylinders, which means I need a way to mount my master cylinders. I've looked at a couple of different options, which I should have gone with, which are about $400. And it turned into a $1,200 pedal box somehow. So $1,200, but you could, obviously you don't need it. If you're running a factory engine, you can run your factory braking system just fine. And a full bush kit for this thing, which is control arms, sway bars, not ball joints, and then it is a lower engine mount, rear subframe bushes is $720. That's just going to stiffen it up, add power, add speed. Again, not necessary, but something that I'm going to put on the car. Battery. Now, factory batteries, lead acid batteries are heavy, very, very heavy. The battery that came out of this car, I think, is about 14 kilos. So a quick way to shed weight is to go with a lithium battery. So you can get away with, in these, I have put a Harley Davidson SSB lithium battery, which is about a 350 coil cranking amp, and it starts the car fine. You can have about 10 cranks, like 10 short cranks on the starter before it won't start the car anymore. So if your car starts on the key first time every time, you can get away with that. Those batteries are cheap as, they're about $250 odd. I have budgeted, I found one on eBay for $180, which apparently is a 600 coil cranking amp battery. I'm gonna try it, see how it goes. I'll give you a review on it. So that's what I have chosen for that. I'm also gonna relocate the battery to inside the car on the passenger floor, just for sort of ease of everything. I have to put a battery isolator in the car, FIA spec one, which I can reach while I'm in the seat, and also that the safety guys can reach from outside the car. So if your factory battery is here, you need to run power to your battery isolator and then back again. So moving the battery inside means that I can eliminate 2 meters of super heavy, thick copper wire for basically nil downsides. So the battery will go inside next to me, really, really close to the cutoff. I can earth it to the body of the car there. So there is also a battery isolator, which is, that was 150, I think, for an FIA spec battery isolator with everything. It also has to cut off the fuel pump and the ECU and everything. It has to shut the car down. So quite expensive, but again, it's a safety item, so I spend a little bit more on it. I have error catchers to go on the bonnet. I got those off Marketplace for $50. Otherwise, you can just use a regular bonnet pin. Regulations say you need to have 2 catches on the bonnet. You can either you can use the factory catches in some classes of racing and not others. Others, you need to delete this and you need to have an actual mechanical safety latch. So that's what I have done. I have also got injectors, which were about $500 to go on the car, just because I didn't want to deal with the factory injectors with the Haltech, and also coil packs. I've got, they're not on here. I'll add those on here. The coil packs, I'll have to look up how much they cost me. They are Hitachi R8 core packs from Golby's up in Toowoomba. And that's just so that I don't have to work with any of the wiring. I don't have to diagnose that. I can just basically plug them in and tell the Haltech that's what I've got. And the Haltech knows everything. Actually, sorry, lithium battery's $400, by the way, not 180. I'm an idiot. That was my isolator. I have roll bar clamps for the harness, and that's to hold the harnesses in the right spot for my hands device. Probably not necessary. You can use roll cage padding or other things. They're only $50 and I love them. They're a great positive stop for the harnesses to stop them from sliding apart. Brake masters, I forgot to add on before. They were $360 and that's just part of my changing up the braking kit. You don't need those if you're keeping the factory braking system. It just basically means that I can go full manual brakes. I have really great control over my front rear bias and everything. And lines to go with that was about $70 just for some Bundy tube and a cheap flare tool I got off AliExpress, which fingers crossed that works. This engine's also had a timing belt on it because I didn't know the history of it. That was about $180. And fluids. Now, fluids are expensive. All those guys that say changing your oil is cheap insurance, you know, they haven't been broke because fluids are expensive. Brake fluid alone, I run the Penrite 600 degree race fluid, which is about $80 a litre, and a full flush on this car and top off, if you don't waste anything, takes about 600, 800 mils of fluid. If you want to flush your lines out and know that you've got all the old fluid out, you'll use well over a litre. You'll have to tip most of it in the bin. I've also changed the gearbox oil. I haven't changed the engine oil yet because I'm waiting until I've finished all that off, and then I'll put fresh fluids in it. But it's about $300 to $400 to go through and do all your fluids. Coolant in Australia is also quite expensive. And then there's the dry ice to get the sound deadening out. Not necessary, but it saves me a kilo or two. That was $50. And then I've got welding gas. I've gone through 2 bottles of welding gas, which is $240. There is also obviously a lot of consumables, hole saws, grinding wheels, sanding stuff, and then, just safety gear, safety glasses and that I've smashed or run over or melted in the meantime. So that comes to a total of this number here, which at last count was about $18,000, which, looking at what I've built here, is a huge amount of money. I had no idea it was anywhere near that much. My last car, I think, had about $8,000 in it. So I've managed to accumulate an extra like 10 grand worth of sums. If you were to, buy the parts through a shop, take it in and get them to fit them, if you don't have the tools or the skills to be able to do it, it would cost you this much money. However, for that much money, you're probably far better off just buying something that someone else has already built and is tested, because new projects will also require a lot of probably dyno time if it's got anything done to the engine that's not stock, and a lot of track time to be able to dial it in and shakedown runs and stuff, because as soon as you deregister a vehicle, obviously that takes street tuning out. You have to run tracks to be able to just do the simplest things, and that's not easy or cheap. So buying something that's already running and already done is going to save you a lot of headache, get you on track faster. However, it obviously is someone else's car and not yours, and it depends what you're into. If you're into just driving, then that's probably for you. You can buy a car that's already got times set for it and chase those times down. If you're a hands-on person like me and you want to build cars, then you're probably going to spend more time building it than driving it. So choose what's right for you and what your budget is. If you want to do the cheapest thing possible, you can run what you brung events or sprints, hill climbs. There's events all over Australia near you where you can drive pretty much anything. If you've got a daily driver that's pretty quick, you can run that. Daily drivers with street tires and standard brakes, you're probably only going to get 1 or 2 laps before you cook your brakes or you run out of tire. A simple brake pad upgrade and running some semi-slick tires will get you through pretty much any sprint track day where you're running 3 to 5 laps. Endurance racing is probably not going to be for you, but hill climbs you can run with just anything. Any car that you want, you can put in a hill climb. If you do take it off the road and work on it, it just needs to be safe. So it needs to, needs to not catch fire. It needs to be not a rusty mess. It needs to, have a functioning seatbelt, not leak oil, and that's pretty much it for sprints. There's a few really good sprint series around the country. There's a lot of hill climbs, and you can run them in a car that you've basically spent about $1,000 on, as long as you've got a way to get it to the track and back again, which is going to be, your major headache. If you've got a friend that's got a tow truck, or you've got a car trailer, or you've got a friend that's got a car trailer, and you've got someone to store the car, then spend a couple of grand, buy something quick, and just work on it over time. Like I said, this is a accumulation of 10 years worth of work upgrading. It's my 6th car, I think. It's just rolled from one car to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and it's been getting better and better and faster each time. So yeah, I mean, 18 grand sounds like a lot, but like when you break that down to yearly, that's $1,800 a year that I've had to make on the side. So it's really not that much. There's a lot of side hustles out there. If there's enough interest, I'll do a video where I test a few out, because there's a lot of side hustle videos out there. None of them are really based in Australia, or, a lot of them are quite old as well. There's a few things too that I've noticed that aren't on there, which I would like to explore a little bit further. So let me know if you'd like to see that. Otherwise, get out there and build something. See you on track. I need a coffee table. That's not an ideal coffee table. Whatever. All right. I think the lighting is better. I know how you guys love the talky videos and the non-worky videos, but you fucking love that. I've even got a mirror. Look, I can do myself up in the mirror. Oh yeah, I'm fucking sexy.